Thank you so much, Paige. So, what is JOGL? First, JOGL is this massive experiment. We're definitely going into a very different kind of era thanks to digital technologies. Communities are getting structured, more powerful every day, more impactful, and so it means also that science and technology can be impacted by those communities, but we need to create a new kind of framework to help those communities to thrive. And that's exactly what JOGL is to experiment first about what can we provide communities so that they are as efficient and impactful as possible, and while they use and share their information and their technology they're working on. So it's it's a beautiful experiment, and we are very glad that you're part of it. It's just the very beginning, and it's really all about learning and solving together. And JOGL is also mostly tackling two main broad blocks. First is we need to liberate capacity to take initiatives. It's very hard, not only for citizens, but also for professionals to be able to go from one idea to a real project. It can take sometimes years. Access to resources, access to collaborators, to get just the authorization. Sometimes the paths can be very convoluted. So we're here actually to change this. Like, you don't need to go through so many steps. If you want to share an idea, you want to create a team to work around it, you can just join JOGL, find your team partners, you can find resources that are there, and you can start right away. Test your idea, get evaluated, by the community, and if the community likes it, there you go. You have access to resources, and you can move forward. So that's one of the very big things that we are trying to change with JOGL. The other roadblock is to increase the diversity and the number of contributors to open science and technology. So far, when you look at the number of contributors to published science compared to the world population, it's very, very small. It's like one person for every 1,000, and it's mostly because we're only giving the tools to work around science and technology to people who went through like very long road, like paths to become researchers, for example. And so that's all right, but it's not enough. Like, we have so much more problems to work on. So many communities out there that are not actually considered. Many problems are just too small, or are just not part of the places where big institutions are, especially in non-Occidental countries. So that how can we make sure that every community has a chance to work on their own problem and benefit from the same conditions, the same quality of tools and services that normal researchers have in order to work around their problems. That's really one thing that we want to do, is to increase the diversity and the number of contributors. And we think that we can do it by multiplying, by providing access to anyone to JOGL. Anyone can be a member, anyone can join any project, proposal projects. And so, there is no reason, when you look at the numbers, there is about 1 billion people at least that went to some kind of higher education school. So there is no reason that we cannot actually tap into that potential. There is something we're missing here, and we want to change this. So what an amazing year again. And so we're going to share some highlights about our second year, and this is going to be first about the community itself. The community has been growing. We are now almost 6,000, and from so many countries. I think it's getting closer to 100 different countries, and we clearly saw a growth specifically in non-Occidental countries like South America, Africa, and Asia, and we're so happy about that, because this is really what we're trying to achieve here, is to be a global community with no any frontiers. So we are really happy about that, and we'll be talking about how the kind of work we're doing to push this work even further with the creation of regional chapters too. And to give you a bit more details about how this community is growing, first, it's kind of funny when you look at the first panel here on the left, it's really like the growth of the jugglers, the JOGL users since the very beginning. You can clearly see three phases. The first phase of, we were just a very small platform, a few hundred people were testing things out, and then COVID happened. And then this explosive growth, COVID has been for us a crazy situation and a way to test if the vision of JOGL was the right one. And I think we succeeded at proving that community-based, community-driven science innovation was the right choice. And then once that the COVID got started to slow down, we entered a new phase of growth that is also steadily. And we also expect to start a new phase after this launch, as now we'll be able to welcome external communities to the platform too. So we look forward to this. And then we have the project. We also have a steady growth in a number of projects, amazing projects. Again, we're always so excited to see what you're able to come up with. And finally, the number of interactions. It's really impressive to see that since the beginning of JOGL, there has been more than 80,000 interactions that happen on the platform. So it's really mind-blowing when you think about it. So it's been a proof of success to us. And we want to push this even further. Another aspect of the community is the diversity of its skills. And it's really mind-blowing again. We have, it could be, a lot of communities are centered around one domain. It could be medicine, could be data science, but here you got almost everything. From machine learning to mechanical engineering to synthetic biology or social sciences, 3D printing, etc., and design. So what it means is you can come to JOGL and you'll always be able to find someone who'll be able to help you on whatever project you want to start. So that's really key. And then finally, it's really the Open COVID-19 Initiative has been the perfect experiment to better understand how we can structure JOGL in order to make it truly scalable, that to achieve the goals I just talked about previously. And I want to show you some of the key experiments that we've been doing. The first one is to implement a community-driven peer review process. That's something that has been missing for communities for a very long time. That's something that has been the rule, the golden rule in science for generations. It's how do you create trust? How do you make sure that you are able to support the project that are well structured and are going to be able to have an impact? So that due diligence process is really key. And so we've implemented that in Open COVID-19, and the results have been really, really outstanding, and just showing how trustful the community can be when you rely on a process that is just collective intelligence here. So there is no grant panel. Anyone can apply. The applicants have to be part of the review process too, very important. So you're not just being a client, asking for help or money. You have to be part of the process. And then at the end, there is a score that is transparent, that is given to all projects. And based on that score for feasibility and impact, you get supported or not. And again, if you're not supported, you can try again at the next round review. So that's been very successful. And thanks to this, we've been able to allocate grants. So JOGL has been able to get funding to foundations like the AXA Research Fund, and we didn't want to be the one deciding who is more worth to get the funding than others. So thanks to this community-driven open peer reviewing process, we've seen more than 110,000 euros allocated to 36 projects over about a year and a half since the very beginning of Open COVID-19. And out of those projects already, what we've seen is 6 papers being published in peer-reviewed journals and 22 functional solutions. So it's like the output, the yield of the community is really impressive. Another data that is also very important and make us really proud here of this community is the fact that 42%, almost half of the projects were led by a woman. And that is so key when you know the statistics, you know, in institutional science or in the startup world, it's striking, you know, and we are usually more used to numbers that are around the 10–15%. So this is it just shows how healthy the JOGL community is, and also the fact that projects that were funded came from 19 countries, from 4 continents. So it's a truly worldwide initiative here. Really amazing. Among the, you know, the 36 funded projects also span across a lot of different kind of activities and goals. You know, they're all open source, obviously, as this is JOGL. And so we have, you know, projects working on misinformation campaigns, COVID-19 prevention, such as like for masks, a lot of diagnostics, you know, using either biotechnology for diagnosis tests, but also data science, data-based diagnostics, for example, treatment with a lot of medical hardware, education, also we, you know, where, for example, to do like citizen science or to help teachers to interact with students during the pandemic, and also research projects and especially social science research projects. So it's been really amazing to see the diversity and how you know, generic the JOGL approach has been for all of those projects. And just as to get a little bit deep here for the open peer reviewing process, I'm just going to invite Chris to tell us more about, okay, you know, to incorporate, to implement such a process is very new. So we need to be able to evaluate if that process is good or not. So I think that we've been doing some analysis, and Chris is going to tell us more about that.
Yeah. So basically, applicants review other applicants, and also volunteers can review as well if they have enough reviews. And the first 4 review rounds, we had 220 reviews, and then the very last round, the most recent one, we had an incredible response and another 221 reviews. So in total, we've had hundreds of reviews for projects. And when you analyze the data, you actually realize that maybe you'd expect applicants to be harsh against other applicants and they wouldn't score them as well in our review forms. But in fact, they review them just the same, which is really, really cool. And what's also really cool is the evaluation form separates projects well. So when you look at the form and give a big PCA of where they all spread, actually they're very diverse. And then among these projects and among all the reviews, what you find is every question and the question for each project, they have a positive correlation with each other. So people agree that projects are good if they're really good, and they agree that they're bad if they're not quite as good on certain questions. And so actually it's a very fair process, and it's centered around the projects themselves. And we're writing a paper, and we've got a manuscript almost ready to submit this. So yeah, it's really cool, and thanks everyone for taking part.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, it's something that we're going to develop much more in the coming months, so that it becomes even more integrated into JOGL, and it becomes also available to other initiatives that will be hosted on JOGL. So look forward to this. I really encourage you to go and check out the project catalog of the Open COVID-19 initiative if you haven't done so far. I mean, projects are mind-blowing. You can really have fun just looking at them, reading about them. But what this means for community science and innovation. First, it's that community-driven science innovation really work, and especially when the right framework is provided. So that's reassuring. You know, we've been dreaming about this. Communities are not new. They've been existing for quite a long time, but being able to gather so many people and have that high quality collaboration and output I think it's clearly a first especially in open biotech. So it's been great. Secondly, it is efficient and scalable at supporting fast development of frugal solutions. So all of the solutions we've seen are what we call frugal. They are meant to be very low cost, they're easy to prototype, and also potentially very easy to locally fabricate. And that's also a very important aspect. So that's another key aspect. The third point is that open peer review fosters high quality collaboration and production within communities. That's great. So it's been one roadblock. As we know, a lot of people want to contribute. They're doing work on the, on their own laboratory, fab labs, maker spaces, or whatever space they are in. But being able to get evaluated by others, it just brings your game higher. And so that was so important. And finally, being able to provide macro grants for extremely fast, and in an iterative manner, like as long as you have good results, you can apply again and be evaluated again. So it really enables the support of very original ideas while limiting the risk. Because if an idea doesn't work, then it's okay, it's documented, and then we can move forward. We didn't actually allocate it like a whole sum of money to one single project, and that's been one of the main limitations also in academia, or sometimes in crowdfunding too. And then what this means for JOGL. So JOGL goal is really to take all the best lessons from Open COVID-19 to implement it at the JOGL level so that everyone can benefit from it. So that's very important. The other point is not only the best practice, but also the same tool. So we are working very hard so that communities can now join JOGL. It's going to be the case. We're going to present this and access the same tools we've been using to create the Open COVID-19 community. So that's going to be very exciting, and we'll be also continuing working on better tools for that. The other point is we're going to shift from being program centered. That's how we started. We created programs. Open COVID-19 was originally a program to being more community centered. So the goal is really to build communities that are going to be working to a more like specific thematics, and they're going to be able to help each other and to also being able to assist communities that are coming to be hosted on JOGL. And finally, well, to really make the point, and I think we already have made it through Open COVID-19, but we have to make it even bigger, that community-driven science innovation is a path as legitimate as academia and corporate innovation. And so it's so important. And so this is becoming a true alternative for people who want to do science innovation, but without actually getting in the specific constraints of academia or corporations. All right, and now the big time. I'm going to give the microphone to Leo, co-founder and CTO of JOGL, and he's going to tell us about what has been going on in the background about how we actually have built a whole new version of JOGL, the JOGL Beta 2.0. Leo, here's yours.
Yep, I'm here. Can you go to the next slide? I'll
Sure.
start talking. Cool. Nope.
Oops.
Not the previous one, the next one.
Yeah, my bad.
No worries. Cool. Okay, so I'm here to talk about the amazing work of all the people you are seeing on that screen. And all of that amazing work is scrolling in a very laggy, glitchy way, which looks even better now than it was meant to be in the background. So this is the work of like about a year now, a bit less than a year from Beta 1, which was released last JOGL anniversary for anyone that remembers. And so since then, a lot of new people have joined the team, and I've left the team as well to new adventures. And a large amount of work has been done, and most of it, what you're seeing that's, you know, like scrolling behind, is actually invisible. It's like tweaks and bugs and ameliorations into like, you know, code improvement and speed and things like this. So I wanted to, you know, like at least start by giving a shout out to all that work that was done. But then I'm actually gonna just, you know, go into and focus onto specific aspects of Beta 2 that I'm gonna present today. Just know it's not the entire thing. but that's what I think you should be aware of, at least at the moment, that we're bringing in, and that's new. Next slide, Thomas, please. Cool. And so first off, we are bringing a new homepage. So JOGL is getting a fresh look, and this fresh look is a new, more sexy homepage, which presents the team in a better manner, but also a job opportunities, and a quick access to the different locations that you might want to visit that we are offering, such as our blog. Next. And in that regard, one of the most exciting features we have now is actually an onboarding. So now on JOGL, you can follow a nice tutorial. This tutorial is actually going to take you through the entire platform and show you, the different aspects and the different actions you can take. Because this is one of the hardest things for us is, how do we make JOGL accessible to everyone, right? If we want to have thousands of people participating in open science and innovation, we need you to understand what to do and how to do it. We need you to understand what you can do with JOGL. And so for that, we bring you the new onboarding. Next. And so the next thing that I'm gonna, talk about right now is something that has been in the work since 2017, I think, at least. It's like since the very inception of the idea of JOGL between Thomas, Mark, and I, when we were discussing in Boston under like nice trees in the summer, we were like, okay, like if we want this to work, we need this to actually provoke serendipity between people. We need to be able to induce recommendations such that users and projects and needs and skills are all connected in a way that actually works to make open science faster, better, and more sustainable for everyone. And so this is Rexis. Rexis is a recommendation engine. So it uses the underlying network of how the web within JOGL is created, right? This is like how the little spiders inside or algorithms are working. They're connecting objects together, and those objects, this connection and those objects, we can then use that to create recommendation for you, the user, at the center of that, right? And so we have created two things. One, which is the email, which you have probably seen coming for a few months now in your inboxes, where we propose every other week 2 needs that you might be interested in helping solve in JOGL. And now we are also injecting recommendation within the platform itself. And so as time will come, you will see more and more of those recommended objects popping up in many different locations across the platform, so that the best experience can be tailored to your skills, your envies, and your the thing that you've participated before, and the thing you might not even think yet of participating, but actually you should. And that hopefully will be what Rexis will induce. Next. Then a small but actually quite important little feature that was created by a collaborator of JOGL, that is a benevolent collaborator, that she's not employed by us, but she created this little applet which now lets you take an iframe. What does that mean? That means you can now take JOGL cards and put it on your website or your blog or anywhere on the web, and you can display those cards wherever you wish, which is great because for communication purposes in your hackerspace or in your community, you can now inject those little cards and they will look amazing on your site and bring your community back to the place that it needs to go. Next. And talking about cards, we now have a beautiful refreshed look, because now that you can export those cards better look amazing, right? And so Lucy, our designer, made this like beautiful redesign of all of our cards so that the information that's on there and the look and feel of those cards is maximized for impact. Hopefully, at least that's what we want. And the last and new card that you're gonna see is Spaces. And Spaces is a And so space is what we now bring to you, the main tool for you, the communities of JOGL, to organize around a particular topic or a particular space, like a hacker space, for example, that you might have, right? And with this, you can create activities, you can organize projects.
Leo, you please gone on mute.
Something muted me. Sorry. And so with this, you can basically organize your project, your community. You can organize your communication, tell which resources you might be able to bring, or how to join you physically or virtually. And this, we hope, is going to be the main item that will allow for large communities to exist and organize activities across JOGL, such as challenges, but also bring your events onto JOGL. Next. And so this also comes as you, the community organizer, and we have created a very custom and tailorable item, which is space. So you have a great, not maybe the easiest to use admin panel yet, but we're working on this, where you'll be able to organize which projects you want to feature on your page, what you want to display on your page. You can create new activities, new challenges, and challenges now can take the form of hackathons or any type that you might want. You can also submit programs that you would like to attach to your space, and for this we still have to work with JOGL. And finally, at the moment, you can add events from Eventbrite. You can organize your community and accept and reject members like you could in previous things. And now you can also handle affiliations. And affiliations are this very important thing, which means that if you have members that you would like to officially endorse as members of your community, you can now affiliate them to your space, which will then in JOGL show them as officially part of your space. Okay, and then finally, next slide. And then finally, I want to introduce one thing that I think has the potential for being extremely important for JOGL to become the central hub for you to organize your community, which is now JOGL can have external apps integrations, right? So using the standards of the web, we can now connect most of the other tools such as Slack, Eventbrite, Google Drive, Kaggle, and others onto JOGL and bring that information. And you just actually saw it with space, where those events, they're actually hosted on Eventbrite, right? They're not hosted by us, but you can now bring them onto JOGL, display them on JOGL, and share them with your community, right? You can also do this with Slack in the reverse manner. When you post a new need, they'll go onto your Slack and say, hey, you have a new need on JOGL, things like this. So that's actually been done a year ago, but most people don't know about it. So I'm just shameless plug here that this was done already. We're thinking of adding Google Drive and Kaggle as links to your spaces, but what's more important is that I want you all to make a wish. I want you to tell us what integrations you need, right? Because now that we have this amazing technology in the background, we can actually take almost any other tool out there and bring it onto JOGL, or bring JOGL onto your tool as well and work with you to do that. So please make a wish and tell us, send us an email at contact@jogl.io, or come talk to us on the Slack, and we will be able to work with you to try to make this a reality. All right, and that was it for the tech part. Many things to come, amazing roadmap to come for the rest of the year, and I hope you all are excited for it.
Thank you so much, Leo. I think you successfully, just shown how beautiful this collaboration has been in the tech team. We cannot, it's been incredible to see so much energy also coming from the outside of the team, having so many volunteers contributing to making us surprises, don't hesitate if you want to come and play with us. You're all welcome. Don't hesitate. We have a special framework to help you do that.
I forgot, shameless plug, last one. We have open source code and open source methodologies you know, we already have volunteers that help us in the code. If you know how to code, you want to help, come and contact us as well.
Awesome. All right. So the next part, before we get into the panels, is to talk more about what we are building to really support even more and grow the community. And so I'm going to call Paige, who is in charge of community and partnerships at JOGL, and she's going to present us what we've been working on. Paige?
Hi, everyone. So you've just seen all of our new features, and as always, those have been shaped by your needs. And as you know, our goal is to create the biggest community of contributors to open science and technology. So we've been working with various communities on JOGL for the launch of spaces that you heard about earlier. Some of these are here on the Explore page, like you saw. Some will arrive later this summer. And some of you we're waiting to welcome. So please get in touch. Next slide, please. We want to bring your community on board, but it's not a button yet. So you please get in touch at contact@jogl.io or page@jogl.io. And so please let me show you some of the pioneers of this feature. We have After iGEM right here. After iGEM is for anyone who wants to be involved with iGEM beyond their traditional tracks. They've chosen JOGL to host their community, and they've used the activities tabs to structure all their projects around different types of networks like industry or governance and policy. So we'll talk about that later in the panel. Symbio Brazil is a community based in Brazil, and it's centered around synthetic biology as well. On their space, they're actually currently organizing around a symposium that's happening later in July. And so they're posting a bunch of needs where their community can interact around. There we go. Next slide, please. So at JOGL HQ, we've also actually launched a space for our upcoming ambassadors program. We've been thinking about this for a really long time. Open science and tech might be really familiar to all of us here. We really believe in it, but it's still not the norm. So to grow this community, we need to preach the open gospel in the worlds of academia and industry. So that's why we're building this program. We're opening it to early career scientists who can make a mark on their communities and shape the future, really. We want to work with them on central aspects of community building, from hosting events to connecting members or creating content that supports JOGL projects. We want to learn together how we do these things, always better, always with more reach, and always with more impact. There we go. Gemily, it's up to you for JOGL Africa.
All right, thank you so much, Paige. So this is like a central aspect of how we want to really be able to get as close as possible to our community. And Gemily is going to speak about another aspect is about developing regional chapters. Gemily, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Thomas and Paige. As you've seen already, JOGL is doing a lot of fantastic work, building a global community around important issues that affect all of us. And by taking advantage of technologies like the internet, we've been able to make so much impact around the world. But for the impact to be sustainable, place must be taken into consideration. And that is why JOGL's regional program is important. We are very happy in Africa to be the first group to take a stab at doing the regional program. And our focus is on creating the landscape of enabling open science and tech for sustainable development. We have groups like the Africa Open Science and Hardware, for example, who are already doing amazing work. And our role is just to enable them and make sure that the impact that they make scales as far as possible. So like Paige was saying already, just like Paige was saying about spaces, in Africa, we also have the JOGL Africa space, which shows what we're about, some of the projects and initiatives that we've started. So I encourage all of you to have a look and see how you can be part of it. We have our first community initiative already in the works, where we are looking at how to collaboratively fight the scourge of antimicrobial resistance. We are working in partnership with Chris. For example, we have labs in Ghana, the Kumasi Hive Biolab, as well as Mbeya University of Science and Technology in Tanzania as our partners. So again, we have a special space created for the fight against antimicrobial resistance in Africa. I'd finally like to use the opportunity to invite you to join us at our first event, which will be taking place on 21st of July. We'll send you all the information to register and to participate in it. We already have community groups, for example, like Mbwala, who have already created their space on JOGL. We are looking forward to working with others like Innovate Ghana and various communities around Africa who would be interested to use JOGL to power their activities and extend their impact.
Thank you so much, Gamili. And I think this is concluding the first phase of this event. And before we get into the panels, I want actually us to do something a bit fun. It's like a tradition at JOGL. After every global community calls, we've been asking all the participants to activate their video stream so that we can make a screen capture and show like the crowd that has been there and so that we can share this on social media. So we'd like to do the same this time with all of you. So if you can all activate, wow, so I was sharing my screen. I was not actually looking at all of you yet. What a beautiful, beautiful community. Thank you so much again for being here. So yeah, activate your video stream if you can. And I'm going to make a screen capture and this is going to be so beautiful. You're all absolutely amazing, beautiful. All right, so let's wait 5-10 more seconds. Yes, people are still getting their video streams activated. Awesome. We're almost there. And so at my signal, you can do whatever you want. You can say, hi, happy birthday. You know, you're free to express, you know, your current feeling about this event. All right, so are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. And now we're going into the next phase of this event, which is the panels. We're very, very, very happy to have amazing panelists. So I'm just going to share my screen again to show you what this is all about. And here we go. The first panel that we have, it's so the way this is going to go, the first panel is going to be for everyone. We're going to have it in this main room, and the two next ones are going to be on 2 breakout rooms after the first one, and we'll be explaining how you can choose either the one or the other. But the first panel is best practices to build and sustain open science in tech communities. This is a very important subject, as this is, you know, as long as you have the good practices, you can do amazing things, but sometimes you can make mistakes. And we have amazing community leaders that are joining us. And this panel is going to be animated, moderated by Paige. So Paige, the floor is yours. I'll let you introduce and take the control of this panel.
Thank you. All right. Hi again, everyone. So I didn't introduce myself earlier. I'm Paige. I've been at JOGL since November, and I've been working on kind of building all our community processes and trying to structure the work that we do at JOGL. And how do we welcome communities? How do we use our Slack? How do we use JOGL so that it's the best possible place to interact and to collaborate? And communities of practice are essential to bringing out new ways of innovating, breaking silos of academia, and really bringing about change. But successfully building and sustaining open communities is really challenging. So the way we structure ourselves, the platforms we choose to communicate, and the methods we have to collaborate are really important. This panel is about having an open discussion about these resources. So I'd like to welcome Dorothy Zhang from After IHM, Thomas Mboa, and Bastian Grishek. I'm going to ask you each to introduce yourselves, actually. So Dorothy, do you mind starting?
Yeah, sure. I guess I just introduce about my experience with iGEM, the community I'm now taking care of. I started my iGEM journey since 2017 when I was a high school PI. Then I experience different roles, including the judge, human practice committee member, ambassador, coordinator. It's kind of the community has a magic thing for me that I just want to continue to engage with it. So that's me today. I become a full-time staff in iGEM and taking care of the community program after iGEM.
Thank you. What about you, Toma? Can you tell us about you, your community, and how it came about?
Okay, thank you so much, Paige. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Toma Mbwa. I'm from Cameroon, and I'm one of the co-founder of the Africa Open Science and Artway network. And in Cameroon, I'm the founder of the Mbwa Lab. So all started like in 2014 with the APSOA, or Project SOA, a project to promote open science in Africa and in French-speaking African countries and Haiti. That is how I encountered the open science movement and the community. Yes, that is all about me. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. Bastian, what about you?
Hey, I am the founder of the peer-produced research lab at the CRI in Paris, and I've been doing open science stuff for at least 10 years now when we started OpenSNP, the by now largest open data repository for personal genome data worldwide. And with the idea to make this data publicly available for citizen science, and growing from there, I've moved on to the Open Humans Foundation, which I guess I'm representing as a community more here today than the actual research we are doing, which is about giving people the opportunity to collect and use their own personal data, to do research by themselves, on themselves, but also use it collectively as communities, in particularly for patient communities. And we have a lot of patient communities around, covering things like cluster headaches, diabetes, autism, and many more. And we are working with these communities to make use of their data for good. And yeah, that's the brief summary.
Thank you. That's all really interesting. Our next question is really important. I want you to think nice and hard about it. Maybe I'll start with you, Toma. If someone wanted to create a community similar to yours, what advice would you give them? How would they go about it? How do they start? How do they do that?
That's a very big question, but I think the first thing is so as a leader, the first thing is to hear about what the community wants. So that is the first step. So you should avoid to impose what you think is better for the world, but you need to understand and be with the community, understand their needs, and try to build from there. And yes, that is what I can say in terms of the vision. But now in terms of bringing people together, it's very important to adopt openness values and sharing also information. So if people have, if each member of the community have this impression that all is open, all is accessible to all of them, they will be confident in what you are doing and in what and where you are going to. So all of us, and you including as a leader, you will work in a very fair manner. So that is what I can say.
I completely agree with that. I especially love the part about really starting with your community's needs, because why else build anything, right? Bastian, what do you think of the question? What's the big advice you have to impart?
Yeah, I can only fully agree with what Thomas said. That's, I think, the biggest part. And the second thing is, I think it's like one needs patience for communities don't grow overnight. Like the Open COVID community maybe was an exception because of the situation faced, but typically one needs to have like a very long breath and wait and work for a long time before actually there's any scaling going on. And I think especially in this early moments, it's important to have like a small but committed team that wants to actually listen to each other, going back to what Thomas said, and working together, and then keeping the momentum going, even if it's not a lot of people. I think the biggest mistake I see communities making is trying to go for scaling up and growing too fast, too soon. And that's nearly as unhealthy if there's no new people coming in.
I completely agree. At JOGL, we talk a lot about what are the human touches that we need to put in this infrastructure of the JOGL platform to really support the community, because there has to be a balance of both, of that hard work at the beginning, and then, you know, putting in the hard work to get the community to sustain itself, obviously. But it's so true. It's very important. Dorothy.
Yeah, I also kind of completely agree with the importance of having a shared vision among your community members. And in addition, I think we learned from our experience is we need to trust our community members. And because for a volunteer groups, normally we just feel they are doing volunteer job, whether we will be asking too much. But actually the members, they grow and they gain a feel of achievement while they can truly make something. So don't hesitate to ask them to do something or ask a request, saying there's a need, please work on that. And normally they will also feel like fulfillment when they can truly deliver the things. And let me see, forgot about it. And again, another important thing is when we're doing the projects and doing experiments, it's important for us to come with hypothesis. That means, what do you expect? And we can always review and we learn from our progress. The thing for community is because it's keep growing. No matter how many more people you are having, you have your learned experience and you can share values with the newcomers. That's important for me.
Absolutely. So true. Actually, your community is organized in specific cycles, right, around the Jamboree. So I was wondering what strategies you put in place to continue to facilitate your members beyond that big event.
Yeah, so it's kind of a complicated question. Good question. I mean, the Jamboree is kind of a celebration occasion for all the people in our community. Like the majority of them are the teams that are competing in the same year, but we also have other working groups from after IGEM programs and from the other side of IGEM. So I guess before that, like before the celebration time, all the groups need to work hard, including teams. They have to finish a project, and the other people like our ambassadors, they are supporting the teams and making connections for more people. And our steering groups, they are working to provide more resources that supporting their local teams to use Symbio to solve the local problems. So I guess this is a natural cycle of the year. It's not like we only have one Jamboree. Like we have a lot of stories going before the Jamboree. And what's important for us is we need to have things extended after Jamboree. So when teams finish their competition project, we expect them to carry it out to maybe new startups or maybe the real product that can solve the problems they are targeting. So this is kind of follow up with things. We're still trying hard to make that happen more often.
That makes a lot of sense. When we created spaces as well, we were kind of thinking about those solution cases where, you know, after conferences or after those kind of cycles, projects don't necessarily end and they still need support. And hopefully, you know, the platform is a place to do that. And we're so glad to have After IGEM as well.
Yeah. We're also happy to live on JOGL and expect more helpers from the JOGL communities.
Yep, absolutely. Bastian, a specific question for you. Your community has a lot to do with kind of self-data and body monitoring. How do you recruit members? That's such a specific thing to recruit for almost, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's like multiple pathways from which people come. There's, of course, like individual big communities like the Quantified Self, where it's all the self-tracking nerds around that are already highly into monitoring themselves and collecting data and using it. But then there's, of course, a lot of patient organizations which are already doing this because they are highly disadvantaged because academic and industry research is not actually doing research they deem necessary to improve their quality of lives. And an example for this would be the autism project we are currently working together with the Alan Turing Institute in the UK on, where like what typically is being researched around autism is basically the genetics of it, like what's the reason behind it and so on. But for actually people with autism, or for autistic people, as like most of them prefer, it's like that's not useful. If you are an autistic person and people they want to figure out what's wrong with you, that doesn't improve your quality of life. So if you actually figure out what the community wants, like their priority in research is very different, and they actually start doing this research to figure out to help each other, because they cannot hope that at some point academic research necessarily will shift their focus. Similarly, we have the cluster headache community that has the same issue. Like, it's not super rare. I think it's as common as ALS, but gets around 10% of the funding in comparison, with the result that people are basically left alone. If they get the diagnosis, they don't know what to do. No one knows how to help them. And they are also called suicide headaches, as people end up killing themselves to make the headache attack stop. So they have a very strong drive to figure out how to improve their quality of life and do the research, because they need to, because no one is helping them. And I think we have a lot of these communities where it's, in some cases, literally a matter of life and death for them to improve the quality of lives, and they are willing to do research. And we are seeing many more of these coming in all different kinds of diseases growing.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. It makes a lot of sense that people who have a huge need and who that's not being met manage to gather each other. Yeah, terrific work you're doing. Thank you. Thomas, we're launching JOGL Africa, and we'll have a lot of events around that, this summer and in the coming months. But I'd be really interested to ask you this question now. Do you see a difference in the way communities organize in Africa?
Come again with your question, Paige.
Yes. Do you see a difference in the way communities organize in Africa as opposed to other parts of the world?
I don't really see a difference. Currently, the world difference is mostly about the fact that a lot of events are going virtual due to the COVID situation. But in our context, it's very important in Africa to be in touch with the others so that we can discuss, we can take some time in person to talk with others. And that is why it was so important the first year of Africa Host and the second year to have people like Thomas Landrin in Kumasi Hive, and people like David Kong from the MIT Bio Summit in Ghana, because be present with people is very important. And since a lot of Africans cannot really travel due to visa issue, and the cost of flight are very high. So I think be together and spend time is very important. That is a big difference with how events are organized in other places. And for the JOGL Africa, the coming event, we are going to, I will be part of that too. And it's good because internet through platform like JOGL, the frontier between us, between people across the world are disappearing, so we can interact each other without any kind of barrier. So it's also something very important. So that is the two difference that I can state for the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, the dissolution of barriers having a huge impact on communities and regional communities. It is so true. So I'm going to ask kind of the last question. Bastian has to leave at 15 on the dot, so we'll give him some time. I'd like to know, Thomas, how do you celebrate your community and the work you do together?
No, I'm joking. Yes, so taking the case of the Mbwala, we are doing a lot of small events in the lab, and like during the week, we just had a new baby in the lab. One of our members just have a new baby, and so that is a good celebration for us. And I know that also in the Africa host community, when we have chance to meet, there's a lot of feast that we have to do after the event. So that is how we are celebrating the community. And also our traditional dishes are very important, specifically when we are receiving foreigners. So if you are not from our place, so when you reach to our context or our lab, we have to share with you our clothes, our traditional clothes, our traditional dishes. And yes, that is our way to celebrate what we are doing. Yes, thank you.
I think we can all agree food is the great unifier. What about you, Dorothy? How do you celebrate your community and the work you do together?
Yeah, I mean, like the most important part is like talk about their progress, like let more people know about they've achieved this thing. I guess that's the best way to celebrate their work. And since we are an international community, it's really hard for us to meet together or maybe having the same food at the same time. But there's also one occasion, that's what I said, Jamboree. So normally in the beyond the pandemic, we'll meet together at the Jamboree and celebrate all the work. And we expect to happen in the near future. And now we have JOGL. So I hope like on JOGL, there will be some like festival or celebration events that different communities can get together and know about each other's, the achievements.
Oh my goodness, that's so true. We need to have several celebrations all throughout the year to celebrate all of us all the time. Thank you. Bastian, question for you.
Yeah, for us, the celebration, as we are not physically located in the same place, our communities are from all over the world, and it's really hard to do it. So we always struggle as we cannot have the local lab space or the Jamboree. But what we do instead is we have very regular community meetings online. So we have weekly self-research chats at the same time every week, and that people join and they like share their progress, like how they try to collect data, which data they collected, the issues they face, where people support each other even across, for example, disease boundaries. So some people, even if they don't share the same disease or have the same research interests, like the struggle is very similar. So people support each other, give feedback, ideas. And also what we do in the framing of this is that like, once a year, we have a memorial to one of our community members who passed away of brain cancer 2 years ago. And this is at the end of July every year, where we have like a celebration of like this very inspiring community member who dedicated the rest of his life once he had the diagnosis to open data about himself and how to use the data and learn from personal data. So what we do is we prepare actually presentations. So individuals who have done a research project throughout the year, they give a talk and say, inspired by this example, this is what I learned about myself and how I helped my community. So we are celebrating in that way, even if it's distributed and only remotely. But I think it's very effective for us and people really seem to enjoy it. And after we did it the first time, people were so engaged. They were like, okay, can we do it again next year? And we had initially planned to do a one-off, which now is like a tradition because the community actually wanted this to be a tradition, which is really nice.
That's really, really inspiring. Thank you. Thank you to the three of you. This was a lightning panel, so we didn't get to get into so much detail, but
we have time
really
for questions. Yeah, we have time for questions from for the
have time for questions. Yeah.
If any of you want to ask a question, you can directly write in the chat, or you can raise your hand and speak up.
I already asked a question. It was how you implement the 17 sustainable goals in your plans. And next week on Saturday, the 17th, there is the SDG Action Campaign who makes a big party together on the world where the people can join at 6 o'clock, and maybe you can post it everywhere and say to the people, because everywhere the world around, they have to join the party and make some plans how we can make the SDG happen, the global goals.
Yeah, so July 17th, 6 p.m. And is it a question for JOGL or for the panelists?
No, it's a question for your network, because it's very useful to collect the data. In space law, we had 20 years in 1999. We create a Space Generation Advisory Council. Maybe you never heard of it, but they are there for the UN UNDERSA in Vienna to support them with the ideas of the people. They are below 35. And so about 20 years, they needed to get a voice, and now they created an EAGLE program, and they can send their ideas to the community. And we made an IISL, which is the International Institute of Space Law Knowledge Foundation and base, where you can check out what's the themes and the themes. So it is very related to the action you want to go.
Okay. Sure, that sounds very interesting, Mark. So we should definitely talk afterwards so that we understand exactly what we could do together. I think everybody got the point on the 17th of July. If the panelists wants to answer how they connect with the SDG from within their community, would be great.
Yes, I guess iGEM teams have been addressing the challenges through the past 17 years, although we didn't explicitly kind of categorize our tracks as the 17 SDGs, but at the actual projects they've been delivering are tackling the challenges related with all kinds of SDGs. And I guess the mission of iGEM is enabling the local people to solving the local problem. And many of the local problems are directly related with environment or the food safety or the health, like all reflected in the 17 SDGs.
Okay, thank you. So from my side, the Mboa Lab is a community biology lab, and one of our first main SDG goal is the SDG 3 about good health and well-being. That is why we are working to try to make some reagent affordable for diagnostic. And also we are working on SDG 4 because we are doing a lot of capacity building and trying to help the research local talent to work on advanced molecular biology technique. Yes, that is, and I can also say that with the SDG 5, because we are encouraging women to work in our lab to engage them in STEM. And finally, 8 and 9, and very important also at the Mboa Lab. So basically, that is our main SDG goal in which we are working.
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think I very much agree with Thomas, like the good health and well-being, quality education, and also reducing inequalities largely for patient groups which currently really face the lack of that things are not researched about them. And I think it's going even a step further, as I think like we see what people are doing as like patient-led research or community-led research very much. It's like following the UN Declaration of Human Rights, where there is specifically called out the right to participate in doing science, not just in benefiting from the outcomes, but also having access to doing it. And that's very much where we are trying to tackle a problem that goes a bit above the SDGs maybe at this point.
Awesome. Do we have any more questions? I think we have time for one more.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder how you managed to, like, for instance, Bastian, Rob, there are multiple people here who both are working in a charity, building something incredible, but also sustaining a professional job. How do you do that, and how do you decide when to stop from like helping, if you know what I mean? Yeah, I suppose.
That's a great question, Chris.
So I would say for us, it's kind of easy as it's very much aligned with our research interests, which are around how to facilitate people's access to help each other and work with each other to do research. So in that sense, every support and help we give to communities becomes also a data point in that sense for our research, which makes it easy to say that everything we do is research, which allows to to sustain the professional career, basically as like the back door to doing good. That's the hack we found for ourselves here, pretty much. And I think it's important, as I think we can see that at least what we see is that like for doing in that sense, biomedical research. Like there's a lot of regulations and rules around where we can actually provide communities access to the ethical oversight they need to legally do the kinds of research they want, which we couldn't if we weren't wearing an academic hat at the same time. So the transbiome project that we just started a couple of months ago for studying the microbiome, the neovaginal microbiome of trans women, because it's not been researched by academics at all, we could not be doing legally in France if we weren't also part of an academic institution, which allows us to go through the ethics review. Because if we weren't, we had no access to doing this in a way that's officially allowed in France. So it's like the community is doing all the actual research and we just help them fill out the 55,000 forms because it's France.
Yes, I totally agree with Bastian, and that is what my supervisor Florence Piron called recherche action, and that is the same thing I'm doing here in Cameroon because I'm teaching at the Advanced School of Mass Communication, but I have my own lab, the Mboa lab, where I can do what I want or what is not really easy to do from my university. And I succeed to bring some students in my lab as internship for them. And it's very important because, as Bastian said, what we are doing in the lab is tightly related to our work as a teacher. So that is why it's not easy to separate the two, but you can mix the result from one context to another. And yes, so it's very exciting to work like that. Yes. It's a lot of freedom, and yes.
Yeah, I guess like on my end, things are a little bit different because I'm a paid employee to take care of the program. But talking about iGEM, I think like iGEM has a component that running the business, doing competition, and has component of the community building that iGEM has been putting resources to. This kind of like a mutual things, like the community is also feedback to the business program and maybe making resources for that. And talking about our volunteer members, like for them, I think it's essential, like Bastian had mentioned, the work they've been doing is connected with their career development, so they can keep interest and keep investing in that things and keep that passion.
Thanks, Dorothy. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up here. Again, thank you so much, Bastian, Dorothy, Thomas, for making it to this panel today. We want to keep the conversation going, so hopefully we'll have more panels like this around these questions, and we'll write about them, and we'll keep going on exploring what it means to build open communities in science and innovation. I'm going to pass it back on to Thomas for the rest of the panels.
All right, thank you so much, Paige. Thank you so much for the amazing panels. Yeah, I mean, we're learning. We're at the end making communities is all about experimenting. We don't know what's going to come up, and so there is not a single good recipe. So we have to adapt all the time. So it's always it's really fantastic to be able to hear from you guys. You know, Dorothy, Bastian, and Thomas. You guys have been doing such an amazing work. Now we're going to move on to the two different panels that are going to happen at the same time. I'm going to share my screen again so that you can see what they're going to be about. Here we go. Here, the first panel is going to be about promises and challenges of open science and technology in Africa. That is going to be moderated by Gamelia Azzaro. And this is going to be in one of the breakout rooms. So we're going to explain how you're going to enter one of the breakout rooms. The other panel is going to be about the lessons and successes from Open COVID-19 Initiative, and I will be the one moderating it. So the way you're going to join oops, I didn't want to do that. To join one of the breakout rooms, you will see you have a button called breakout rooms, and you're going to being able to choose one of 2 rooms. So it's actually, I'm just realizing that the breakout rooms have not been open. So let me just do this right now. Still learning here. Here and all right. So if you should be able to see the 2 different rooms, and you can join them directly by clicking over join, the one you prefer. And if you prefer, you're not sure how to do that, we can actually assign you ourselves. Like if you prefer, you can just tell in the chat which room you want to go, and we just move you over there. All right, so I see everyone in their respective room in about a couple of minutes, so that we have the time for everyone to move, and then we'll start, and we'll come back in 30 minutes in this main room for the wrap up. Thank you, and see you there.
Oh boy. This voice, seriously.
Yes, it's a bit creepy, I know.
Zoom, can't you change that?
It's automatic. I would love to change it, but I can't. All right.
I'm talking about you, Tom. I'm talking about Zoom, the company. I'm like,
I know. So awesome. So very glad that you guys have joined in this for this panel. I'm going to share specifically the slides about this panel so that you can actually see who are going to be our panelists. All right. So we are extremely lucky because we have not 3 but 4 panelists, because they really represent the diversity of projects and contributors that we had during this Open COVID-19 initiative. First is Rachel Aronoff, and she's she's going to introduce herself, but she's been a member of this community since the very beginning, and she's been leading amazing initiatives around biotechnology and especially diagnostics tests. We have Robert Reed, who is also a person very active in the community, working around specifically hardware and medical devices, and he's going to tell us more about that. We have Joshua Moore, who is a PhD candidate at the University of Cardiff, and he's been also part of this community recently. He joined through the round 5 of the micro grants. And finally, we have Marcelo Giovannetti, who is part of the AXA Research Fund. And this is very important for us that we have someone from the AXA Research Fund, because they've been the one making this happen. They are the main funder of the Open COVID-19 Initiative. They have trusted JOGL and the community to make this happen. And so I think it's very important that we get to have their perspective regarding this program. So I'm very much looking forward to this amazing panel. Before we start, make sure that if you're not speaking, that everybody is muted. And without further ado, let me stop my screen sharing so that we get to see everyone. Perfect. So first of all, I'm going to ask every member of this panel to introduce themselves. First, I would like to start with Rachel. Hello, Rachel.
Hi, nice to see you. Great to have this celebration here for JOGL. So my name's Rachel Aronoff. I'm the founder of a public health organization, one could call it, AGIR, Action for Genomic Integrity Through Research, which is all about finding ways to avoid risks to health from the many things we choose to do. Of course, there are lots of risks we can't avoid at all, but I'm also president of the Open Public Lab Aquarium, or in the French pronunciation would say aquarium, to sort of highlight this idea of open science and sharing like a fishbowl, the transparency and learning new things together. Here in Switzerland, I'm in part of our Open Public Lab. This is our P1 room here, and it's really great to be part of this JOGL adventure.
Excellent. Could you introduce actually the project you've been working on within Open COVID-19?
Yes, of course. We've been doing quite a lot in terms of accessible diagnostic tools, molecular diagnostics for the virus, based on a sort of molecular amplification strategy. So there were at least 4 JOGL projects that were involved in developing specific molecular tests for the virus, and ours is called Corona Detective. And it was inspired by the GMO Detective, which was actually a project that came out of the CRE with Guy Adelberg. And there's a whole bunch of other people about that.
Thank you, Rachel. Next, I would love to hear from you, Rob. Could you introduce yourself and tell us more about the project you've been leading within the initiative?
Sure. So my name is Robert L. Reed. I'm a computer scientist, but I'm really kind of a glorified computer programmer. I'm the founder of Public Invention, which invents in the public for the public. So we try to make open source hardware inventions. I'm also a board member of Helpful Engineering, which is a different but highly aligned nonprofit that is similar. Both of those organizations are kind of similar to JOGL in some of the things that they do. If I'm not mistaken, I have personally been associated with 5 projects which were given JOGL microgrants recently through either Helpful Engineering or Public Invention. For Public Invention, there's the OX, which is an oxygen concentrator, and there is a project Polyvent, which is an attempt to make a bellows-based ventilator. With Helpful Engineering, there is VentOS, which is an attempt to make a software open source platform for any ventilation system. There's also a transport ventilator called OpenVent Bristol and a ventilation splitter called Project Tetra.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rob. And then to Joshua.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh. I'm a second-year PhD student here at Cardiff, where I study maths, and usually I'd be working on developing models to understand the initial stages of breast cancer formation. But over the last year or so, Thomas Woolley in the audience, my supervisor, and I have been working on several COVID-19 related projects. We're using maths to model different infection transmission events in various scenarios, in particular looking at public spaces. And so we, over the last couple of months, we found JOGL, so we've joined the community and now are working on a project to develop a online software tool for policymakers to use our models to reduce that lag time between decisions and modeling and using different parameter space, those types of ideas, wrapping all that into some software.
Awesome. And then last but not least, we have Marcelo from AXA Research. Marcelo, are you here?
Yes. Hi. I'm
Hi.
here. Thanks for having me and happy birthday.
Thank you.
So I'm Marcelo Giovanetti. I am a project and partnerships manager at the AXA Research Fund. particularly on research projects in economics, but also on open science. So just to give you an overview of the research fund, we basically started in 2008 with a philanthropic arm of AXA, the global insurer. And we really started to address, the challenges our planet faces today through academic research. So since 2008, we've given about 250 million euros to 660 projects in 320 different academic institutions. So we fund research normally along 3 different themes, which are all around risk. This is environment, health, and economics. So it's kind of one part of our mission. A second part of our mission is to bring science out of the lab. And this is really when it comes to science dissemination, fostering collaboration between academia and AXA in particular, but also within the insurance industry, and then sharing knowledge with society at large, key decision makers. I'll just add that kind of one of our driving ideas behind the research fund is AXA's broader purpose of acting for human progress by protecting what matters. So a lot of it is kind of funding public academic research that can lead to or advance human progress and help prevent and inform risk. Just to say as well that since 2016, open research and open access has been a key value for the research fund. So we really believe that free and unrestricted access to the scientific outputs and the research projects that we fund is actually a fundamental part of our mission. So yeah, and just from hearing this session before, we also have this big community that we're also trying to work on engaging a bit more, and particularly interested in these innovative research methods, which is basically what led us to this project.
Thank you so much, Marcelo. Maybe as a follow-up question, like you started explaining it, but what has been like your experience, because you've mostly used to fund academic research projects or academic shares, and so being able to fund this open community is, I think, definitely a first, not only for the AXA Research Fund, but I would say probably like for almost any research funds out there. So what made you want actually to fund this community, and what has been like your main take-home message in terms of, okay, actually this is maybe fully legit, and do we need to maybe change or consider like a new category of contributors to science?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Traditionally we fund academic institutions, as you said, so we're dealing with kind of very traditional research methods within very high level academic institutions. And I think one of the things that really attracts us to JOGL and the work is this kind of disruptive and collaborative way of working that can lead to quicker solutions, because academic research is notoriously slow. So it can lead to quicker and more agile solutions. And I think this is exactly what we saw with the COVID-19 Open COVID-19 project. When the crisis first started, we were kind of figuring out what could we do. So we immediately earmarked about 5 million euros to give to different institutions. So we were kind of one of the early funders of the Pasteur Institute, the French Medical Research Foundation, French Red Cross, the Parisian hospitals. So these are all kind of very traditional institutions. And then we also kind of did some special awards to researchers based on institutions. But I think what really we were looking at was how can we have more on the ground quick solutions that are really necessary during a crisis like this. So really the idea that the Open COVID-19 project was focusing on that sort of prevention, detection, treatment, but really looking at how we can make PPE more accessible, these kind of low-cost solutions. And I think this was already in line with the kind of innovation that we want to bring to the research community, which is, yeah, I mean, basically, open platforms and prototyping promising equipment.
Yeah, yeah, it's very exciting. I have to say it's been such a blessing to work with the AXA Research Fund, because you guys have been listening to the kind of needs and especially need of agility. That is definitely something that institutions are not used to. Like, we work with such a brewing community, and I think it's sufficiently rare, important to remark that you guys are being so reactive when we need you. So thank you for that. The next question is going to be for Rachel. Rachel, Open COVID-19 is fundamentally a community-driven initiative, and so you have told us about your project around diagnostics, but obviously the diagnostic tests that you've been working on is not the only diagnostic tests that have been going in the community. So could you tell us how JOGL in its infrastructure and community has been truly helpful for you and your project, to really move forward the problem that you were trying to solve?
So yeah, without Open JOGL's funding and so on, probably this Open Public Lab would never have had the opportunity to do the sort of molecular diagnostics that we set out to do. And we were so fortunate to be able to manage to make the equipment work. We had to hack an old real-time PCR machine to get the initial data and double check how our primers worked. And we had to order special tagged primers, and we also wanted to compare to the other kinds of diagnostic tests that are out there. So, for instance, if somebody had a positive test with the RT-PCR, would they get showed up on our corona detective? Was a very interesting thing to do. And recently we got some real inactivated virus to use as positive controls, and we could also take that and put it on the quick auto antigen test that the Swiss government lets you get basically for free. And we could actually really quantify the number of virion copies that those tests see versus the number of virion copies that corona detective sees. And it was really quite nice to know that we were over 2,500-fold more sensitive than this antigen test that's used for it's really to find the people who are the super spreaders. But
I guess maybe more specifically, because this is fascinating, but how have you been interacting with the other diagnostics projects and the community?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So really it is the colleagues getting pulled together in the Slack channel of the Project Nucleic Acid Amplification that really pushed us to all do a lot more work than we would have ever expected possible. Not just here in this little open lab, but all over the place. We have colleagues now in Chile, colleagues, I thought we were going to show the picture and stuff, Thomas, but there's a picture of what the output of our corona detective looks like, and a whole bunch of people who made this all possible. And so besides the colleagues, the feedback on the Slack channel very quickly, and the sort of collaboration with Guy, of course, who had developed the GMO detective, and then we based the same method with the special primers for the virus to make corona detective work. But the fact that it was decentralized, all open access, and it wasn't just the funding, it was this open development that made it so special, and we were so glad to be part of it.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. Yeah, it's been such an amazing collective adventure, and I would like to ask the same question to Rob. So in fact, Rob and Joshua, you can actually answer that question one after the other. You've joined the community more recently than Rachel, but you've joined the communities through the open peer reviewing round, and so I wanted to ask you, what did you gain by joining JOGL? I was obviously the funding, but like also beyond the funding itself?
Well, so I think for the teams that I work with, like Ben Coombs on the Ox and Open Vent Bristol and these others, it was a vote of confidence from the community that the projects had value. And that's one of the beautiful things about the community peer review process, which is very different than the academic process, where in general, the academics value the ability to get publications and to do interesting things. The fact that something is beneficial to the world is of less importance if it's not academically interesting in that environment. And so I'd like to thank Marcelo and his organization for making the peer-reviewed microgrant process possible. I'd also like to just point out an observation. Many of the people who work on these projects are relatively highly paid, but getting $2,000 or $3,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 euros, it's kind of like you gave them $30,000 in terms of their motivation, even though you're just buying them equipment that they probably could have bought themselves. The motivational impact of that funding is really quite tremendous. Now, I have to admit, I have not used the Slack channel at JOGL as much as I probably should have, because I'm a part of Helpful Engineering and Public Invention, and we kind of have our own volunteer network. But it may be that JOGL will become a global community of volunteers who can democratize this kind of research. And I certainly support that happening.
I guess from my perspective, coming from this just with one project, the peer review kind of system you have here was fantastic for us to understand how to develop our kind of product into a very general product, very user-friendly product, because we came from a very isolated kind of community of me and Thomas developing these types of models. But the idea of our project was to make it globally accessible. You need to be able to use this tool regardless of where you are, your kind of technical background, and that kind of peer review process really enlightened us to understand, okay, these are the kind of aspects we need to focus on to make sure they're completely crystal clear, make sure everyone knows where we are in terms of our kind of terminology and things like that. But also coming now into the community as we're kind of closing the project, we're getting continuous support from the JOGL team for promotion of our application, as well as a call for volunteers for us to work with them as we run out of funding and work on this in our spare time type of thing. So it's a fantastic community to be in for these short-term projects, because these things won't get done any other way. So having that flash funding to get these projects done is just fantastic for these types of COVID-related problems.
I'd like to second that. The speed of flash funding is incredibly important. There are philanthropies that provide large amounts of money, but if you have to go through a 6-month grant process to get it and you have a worldwide pandemic, it's too late.
Yeah, that's something that we're that was the plan, and we're happy that the plan worked. Looking at the time, we have I would ask a last question to all of you, and if the time agrees with us, we'll also be taking questions from the crowd. So get ready and write your questions in the chat if you want to. The last question is just simply, what's next for you in your project? How do you see actually this project going forward? And what would you like maybe the JOGL community or JOGL actually to help you with?
Did you want me to start again?
Please, Rachel.
Okay, so next, going forward for Corona Detective is really the big push for getting our clinical trial validation of the method and the really getting standardized production at scale, so we can actually have a reliable, the same for every batch to batch. You don't have a ton of variability, which is what is possible with just small batches being freeze-dried at the CRE. And so we're really looking forward and talking to big companies, experts in freeze drying right now. There's one in America that We really think we're going to get our proof of principle batch very soon. And so we really are exploring these avenues for at-scale standardized production and trying to really get to a point where these inexpensive diagnostics can be used in places they're most needed.
Awesome. We're so much looking forward to this. I guess next would be either Rob or Joshua who wants to go next.
Yeah, so I'll just speak. These will be technical answers. On the OX, the public invention oxygen concentrator, what we're trying to do is to get the pre-dehydration working so that it's a really solid and well-tested solution. It's a highly open source solution, but it's not really ready for production right now because it needs dehumidification. We're moving forward with that. On a second note, which might not mean anything to anybody, but it will show what we're doing. I'm flying to Montreal this weekend, assuming COVID doesn't prevent me from doing so, to work with the engineer making the ventilator to take the VentOS software system and embed it for the first time on that hardware system. So the money given to VentOS is promoting the idea of an ongoing open source ventilation platform, which others are free to use. Now, sadly, no one except the Polyvent system is choosing to use it right now, but I'm hoping that I can build momentum behind that project.
Awesome. Joshua?
Yeah, so for us, the first build of our application is kind of finished. And now we're in the rounds for feedback. So that's feedback from our kind of study groups, from the policymakers that we're kind of working with, our colleagues, as well as just the general audience. So Thomas Woolley, the other member of our team, just linked the application in the chat. So basically, we're looking for as much feedback as we can. Use it, try and break it for us, really. We need this thing to be as robust as possible. We're testing it continuously, but there's always something. And anyone working in web development, coding, will know there will be something somewhere. So the feedback basically for us is our next step of just iterations until we get that polished product for the policymakers.
Awesome. And then I will ask Marcelo, like what do you think this COVID pandemic has taught the AXA Research Fund? Like, do you feel like you are changing part of your strategy for the way you want to work? You know, it's related to what you've already been saying, but maybe to summarize it in a concise way for everyone here. I think it's so important as a good model for probably also other funds.
Yeah, I think just by, you know, kind of our inherent nature, we still have to really stick to traditional ways of funding research. But I think it's been a really good example, and it's been a really good lesson to really tap into our, you know, community of researchers, because you, Thomas, you know, have been funded as a fellow from the research fund, and kind of really listening to our researchers, because I think, you know, if we go with them, they can really take us outside of the box, as long as that research is true to our mission and to our broader purpose. So the pandemic, this project has really taught us to kind of, there can be alternatives to traditional funding, and, you know, we can act, you know, agilely, I guess you could say, to support different types of research.
Yeah, we're looking very much toward this, and yeah, we're definitely at the beginning of a new era. I think a lot of actors that were, you know, somehow in the background for so long has really rised up during the pandemic and made, you know, so much happen that now they're legitimate, and so it's really important to make their voice still heard, and that we can really enable them to stay on the map and give them opportunities to act. So this is fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. The idea is, if you have questions in the crowd, please ask them now. You can either write them in the chat and we'll read them for you, or you can just unmute yourself and speak. Otherwise, we'll just end it here. So Chris is asking, I think, a nice question. What's your dream for the future of open science? in a few words.
It's an easy one. We want to democratize research so everyone has access to a community lab somewhere near where they live. That's the best way. Get your hands in there and you learn, and then it makes sense. Of course, everyone should get vaccinated.
Thank you, Rachel.
So I'd like to answer that as well, although I'm not the scientist that Rachel is. From an engineering point of view, I would like to see what we might call public invention, or perhaps humanitarian engineering would be a broader name for it, be a third pole that arises. If we think about the last 100 years, for-profit firms have done amazing things, and universities have done amazing things. And those are sort of the two sources of intellectual input to our society. I would like to see what you might call amateur science or open source inventing or open source thing, not replace those, but be a third pole to those. And I would like it to be professionally possible for someone to enter government service and then work at a university research lab and then spend a little bit of time working for a nonprofit in an open source environment, and then go back and work for a large corporation and make a lot of money and move between those fields easily. I think if we could accomplish that, we would really be entering the next century with a different model.
Cannot agree more. Joshua?
Yeah, I completely agree with what everyone's just said, particularly with the community aspect, having a community around you, to develop a community around you so you can have that freedom just to talk about ideas all the time and just have exposure to different types of ideas. But I feel like at the moment it's too high up. You have to get quite high up in the system to develop these types of communities, to develop the tools to talk about these types of ideas. So it's the idea of trickling this community aspect down. Don't put it on this kind of ivory pedestal of you have to have a certain degree to talk about these things. No, it's trickle this down to all the way down to high school. As long as you get the technical language, once you kind of get the fundamental understanding, that's all you need to kind of do science.
Very good point. And finally, Marcelo, what is the dream of open science for the AXA Research Fund?
Yeah, I think I agree with what the other panelists have said. I think it's really, really making fast, transparent research open to all. I think this is exactly what we saw with this pandemic, and it's a shame it took a pandemic for us to realize how important it was. So I guess for me the future is just for it to be the norm for the next crisis.
Let's be ready for the next one. There will be other ones. Thank you so much, everyone.
Could I just add one last point?
Oh, sure, yes.
There was one last thing that I don't think we touched on, is in terms of open science, is science without borders. There was a recent study done, and because of Brexit, Britain has lost over £1 billion in research funding. That's insane. Britain is a powerhouse of researchers. We have amazing people here, but because of Brexit, they're not being put on bids. So we need things like this to, Britain's not failing by any means, but we need to get past this idea of imaginary lines on a map.
I think sums up, Thomas. Thank you. That was the beautiful way also to summarize everything that's happening now. It's really breaking the frontiers, the walls of institutions, of disciplines, and really making providing anyone with an equal chance of taking the initiative. Thank you very much, everyone, for this amazing panel. We'll be coming back to the main room and to just finalize the event and celebrate this beautiful birthday. So see you in the main room.
Thank you for all.
we are now waiting for the other panel to finish. I believe they should be done extremely soon.
You want to show the picture with all the people that I didn't get to show them?
Please, Rachel. Please, absolutely.
No, can I? I don't know if I can find it. You don't have it. I sent it to you. Oh, well, where is it? No, it's on the other. It's at home. Oh, it's somewhere in the Slack.
So we'll wait one more minute. If not, what I will be doing is I will be bringing everyone. I have the power of closing the rooms just to make sure that everyone is synchronized. But I'm sure they will be ready.
Aha, I found it.
Cool. Show it to us.
Okay, there it is. And then I have to come back here. And now, so now I can share screen? Okay.
You can, yes.
Okay, so it's this one. Okay, so this was just because I was really planning to talk a lot about how everybody was so amazing. So there's Guy, who's now left Paris and is in Israel. There's me and Sam, who helped me hack the big beast in Hackarium. There's Ellen Jorgensen, Sarah in Chicago, Fernan in Chile, Thomas, Scott. We're missing Ali. There's Fran. There's people in Sri Lanka. And I think that's Aravind also, but in Berlin, actually. And the other people that really should be mentioned are Katrin in Germany, Ali in Berkeley, this academic guy, Zeph, who's at UC Berkeley, is more of a mathematician, but has really been helping with pulling together the sort of the big business communication stuff for getting the at-scale production. And yeah, we're thinking about making something, Thomas, called the Z to A cooperative for Zeph to Ali. And I really did want to talk about how great it would be if BITS could make an IRB and stuff, but I didn't get a chance. So
yes, we have so many things came out of this incredible community, but like the fact that as you said, there is a need for helping supporting the translation of the technology that were invented by the community and making them into products. And so far, there is no easy way for a community project to get to that point. So we are currently working on that aspect. And if you're
quite a tightrope, I think we will manage it, hopefully, for some.
Yes, I think so too. Another aspect that we have been touching also is the fact that being able to provide an evaluation framework for the community. And obviously it's been variable, but there is a very specific kind of evaluation that is called an RRB. Remind me what it stands for.
Institutional Research Board. No, Institutional Review Board.
Review Board, thank you.
So they're especially for human studies.
Exactly, and so it's a mandatory step for a lot of projects that are working with humans or humans data. And so it's mostly about reviewing if the rules of the basic rule of ethics are being conserved, and being able to provide such a framework to a distributed community like the DIY bio community, which is a very active community, has many projects, many ideas, would be actually quite revolutionary because it would bring them to another step of quality. So this is also something we've been working on. So if you are yourself listening to this message, definitely join us if you want to help us do that. I think that the Africa panel is late. Paige, are you here? Maybe not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Africa panel right now and tell them to stop and come back here. So see you in just a bit.
Initiative. I'd like to thank all of our panelists as well. You've given us some great words. You said get out of the lab, go into the community and make impact, very important. I'd like to thank our panelists, Joy Owango from TCC Africa, Harry Akligo from the Hive Biolab.
Right, I will do that. But now I'm downstairs. So I'm from Leverkusen. Where are you from? You know Leverkusen in Germany? It's on the other side of the Rhine from Cologne. And we are Chem Park City here. We used to have Bayer and now it's the Chem Park, and we have Bayer, Covestro, and a lot of Lanxess, you may know, and a lot of big companies here. And we have a lot of problems with the Rhine flooding. So we have a very old port at the Rhine, which is about 1,000 years old. It's called Hittorf. And in this Haber, we had 2 big floods, and then they have a plan. Germany always makes plan. So for the COVID, I did a Rücklauf plan. It's called a backup plan, which is from the Schifffahrtsministerium and Amt for the waterways in Germany. So we always have a backup plan. We can check up it with analog. And right. So there, where we get the water, the wastewater over to the Rhine.
Now we're going to start,
to protect your port from 3 meters flooding. You need a 30-meter downwards wall to get up the groundwater. Otherwise, you got a problem.
Okay, so we're going to start the event again. Thank you again for all the panelists. I'm sure the panel on Africa was absolutely awesome too. We had really a great time. Everything is being recorded, so there will be videos shared on social media and on YouTube, so that you can look at it again, or you can share it also to your own community. And before we end this celebration, I really wanted to say thank you again, because this is an adventure that wouldn't have been possible without you, but it wouldn't have been possible also without the JOGL team. And so I would like also to celebrate the amazing team that we have the chance to work with. Everyone is really, I mean, the JOGL team is quite special in the sense that everybody, we are a distributed team. And so since for a year and a half, before the COVID started, we were all based mostly in Paris. But after the COVID, we started actually, enlarging our scope. Also, we started working with people from different continents. We then hired people from different continents, and now we're, the team is the people of the JOGL team are in 8 different countries and in 4 different continents. And so we basically apply the same rules to us than the JOGL community is using. And so it teaches us also about the kind of dynamics that are cool to apply for community animation. You heard about Gemini, we have Juliette, you heard about Leo, Lucy, Brad, Chris, Luca, Max, Mariana, Paige, Mark, Anthony, and Jill. Those are the current members of the team, but there is also all the other members of the team who are not part of the JOGL team currently, but have been part of what is JOGL today, especially in the past 12 months. And so it's Kat, it's Nathan, it's Kate, it's Alex, it's Corey, it's Isabel, Luis, Janet, and Elliot. So thank you so much, guys. This is such an ambitious and complex project, and none of this would have been possible with all of you. We're so lucky to have such a beautiful team. And so obviously, the next part is to thank our key partners. What makes JOGL running today, and we, first of all, the AXA Research Fund has been truly a key partner since the very early stage of development of JOGL. We've been working with them, discussing with them even before COVID, as we've been discussing about how to help open science in Africa. Then COVID hit, and they were extremely fast to support us. And they've been doing so since then. So truly, thank you to the AXA Research Fund. And then we have the AFD, the Agence Française de Développement, also, who has been truly listening to the kind of mission that we're developing, especially for open science in developing countries. So thank you, AFD, again. Before we say goodbye, a reminder of our next events. The next Global Community Call is happening in 1 week from now, on July 14th. And then you heard about it from Gameli. We have the launch of JOGL Africa on the July 21st. And also after the summer, the launch of a new program around cancer. It's called Epidemium. It's the 3rd season. Epidemium is something that we're quite familiar at JOGL, because with Mario and myself, the 3 co-founders of JOGL, it's actually a program that we've been working on before JOGL. And so we are very happy actually to see it coming now onto JOGL. It's like the cycle is complete. And so there will be more information on September 9th. And thank you again. So yeah, happy birthday, JOGL. It's been an amazing adventure in the past 2 years, and I cannot start imagining what's going to happen in the next few years, especially in the next 12 months. We have so much packed in our luggages that we want to develop. We have so much ideas. We want to work with all of you to make it happen. And if you want to help us, if you want to work with us, do not hesitate. Come to us, and we change the way science innovation is being done. Thank you again, and I hope to see you all very soon. However, this is not the end. As I told you, we have a special event for after IGEM. So if you're interested in staying, like I will do, to hear more about after IGM that is coming on to JOGL, and especially about synthetic biology, stay with us. We'll take a couple of minutes break, and then Dorothy will take the following. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. À la prochaine.
Hi guys. Thanks to all the teams.
Au revoir.
Thank you for the event.
Bye bye, à la prochaine fois.
Ciao, everyone.